Hello people of YouTube, Heisenbrew here for another video. Tonight I'm going to be going over all of the cards I've gotten to add to my deck card pool over the last week. I've got a pretty decent stack. One thing, I do not actually pay for my cards, I trade for the ones I need. Playing Magic for as long as I have, I've opened many packs and acquired many cards, so I have the fortunate ability to be able to trade for pretty much whatever I want. And I want to do this video because I want to show you some of the things that will be choices for the community deck video I'm going to start doing, which I will believe the first video on that will be out tomorrow. I know I want it to be a modern deck. It's going to be Naya Zoo, and the way I want to do it is I want to break the videos down. I want to do one for creature choices, one for instants and sorceries and enchantments, one for lands, and then one for the sideboard. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to present you the cards that I have, and you guys can help me make the choices on each thing to build it. And then after it gets built, I'm going to play it, go to F&M and everything. On Tuesday nights at my local card shop, they do the SCG Modern stuff, and that's a free tournament, so that's kind of nice, so I can play there too. And then a lot of times in F&Ms they do Modern as well as Standard, so I'll definitely be reporting back the results of my play testing with that. But as far as making the card choices, leave comments in the comments section below each video, and we'll go over each and every card, what it brings to the deck, any cons it might have, things like that. But I definitely want to put out the first video tomorrow for that, and I believe it will be the creature video. We'll go over all the creatures that I have that I think would be good in the deck, and you guys can help me make the choice on which ones make the cut. But anyway, tonight we're going to go over the cards that I've gotten in the last week to add to my card pool for deck building. So first, I did pick up a Ghost Quarter, and I'm using MTG stocks to show the cards and current prices and stuff like that, and I actually did get the one from Innistrad, so that was pretty nice. Ghost Quarter's good because aside from it being a land and adding a colorless mana to your mana pool, if your opponent has a land that you need to get rid of and you're not really packing any land destruction, it's handy to have. You do lose a land, you lose the Ghost Quarter, but luckily it's just colorless. But then they get to search their library for a basic land, which is good because if they have a dual land that you need to get rid of, you can make them get rid of that by sacrificing your Ghost Quarter, and then they only have to go get a basic land. So it's pretty good. I mean, it's decent land destruction, kind of a 1-for-1 with an upside. But helpful, and you never know, that could save an entire turn for you, and could also help you win the game. So I was happy to get one of those. Next, got Clifftop Retreat, also from Innistrad. It is the red-white dual land from that set. It does enter the battlefield tapped unless you control a mountain or a plains. So if you've got this in your hand, this wouldn't be a good turn 1 play per se. I'd put down a mountain or a plains, but turn 2 you could put this down and it's untapped. This would be kind of handy. You know what? No, it really wouldn't work for Wild and the Coddle because the land, see, it just says land, it doesn't say mountain plain on there like Sacred Foundry does, but still a good land to add. Yeah, typing's terrible today. I'm not the best when it when it comes to that part, unfortunately. Alright, next I did get a couple Cinder Glades. This one, it's decent, but you have to control 2 or more basic lands or it enters the battlefield tapped. So really the soonest you could play this to be untapped would be turn 3. But as far as a dual land, red and green, it's okay. It's not the worst thing in the world. But the type actually does say Mountain Forest, which is also cool. And so does the next land that I got a few copies of, which is Canopy Vista. It's a forest plains. Same thing though, enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands, so not the worst thing. And then I also went ahead and got a fetch land. I was able to find one. Nobody really is wanting to get rid of these right now. I'd probably be because of Frontier, the fact that they're legal in Frontier, but I was able to get a Woodland Foothills. You tap it, pay 1 life, sacrifice it, and you can search for a mountain or forest card and put it onto the battlefield. The reason these are so good is because you can get either one you want, and they don't come into the battlefield tapped, so it's not bad. Plus, you're only losing 1 life, so that's not the worst thing in the world. And then we also picked up a couple copies of Sulphur Falls. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you control an island or a mountain. Not bad, but really any dual land that enters with either blue or red mana that you can use is pretty good. Another deck I'm thinking about building soon is the blue deck. It's the Zoo. That's the red-blue Zoo deck with Kiln Fiend, Monastery, Swiftspear, Thing in the Ice, which I actually have most of those cards too. And the next one I got, and I was only able to find 3. Unfortunately, right now I still need to find another one, but this is another card people aren't wanting to get rid of, and that's Monastery Swiftspear. I think it's one of the best 1-drops ever printed. It's got haste and it's got prowess. So if you drop this on turn 2, it only costs 1 to play this. You also have a lightning bolt. Well, it's now a 2/3 with haste, and you can bolt either to the dome or a creature they've got down, and then you could attack straight on through with this either way. So I was able to get 3 copies of this. Kind of hard to come by. Not a lot of people want to get rid of these either, because she's used in Modern and Frontier extensively, so that's not too bad. And then the next card I got, I was only able to get 1 copy, but I definitely want to pick up some more, is Rift Bolt. It's got Suspend 1, and it's just 1 mountain. It's a sorcery, but it deals 3 damage to target creature or player, so it's kind of like a lightning bolt that takes a turn to be able to hit, so it's not too bad. I mean, if you drop this on turn 1, on turn 2, you know you're doing 3 damage to either the creature or the player. Not too bad. Next card I got, and I do have 4 of these, is Mutagenic Growth. Either 1 forest or pay 2 life. It's the Phyrexian mana. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Good pump spell. Infect uses that one a lot. I've seen Zoo use it sometimes too. And to go along with that, we've also got 4 copies of Vines of Vastwood. Can't use Phyrexian mana to pay 2 life for this one, so you do have to pay a forest. It's an instant, and it's got kicker, so if you pay 2, it gets +4/+4 until end of turn, and gives the creature hexproof until end of turn. Now, if you only pay the 1, you only get the hexproof portion until end of turn, so it's kind of like a blossoming defense in a way. But if you do pay the kicker cost, then you also get +4/+4. So it does cost 1 more than blossoming defense for the pump and the hexproof, but you get 2 more points of power and toughness, so that's not too bad. I do have 4 of those. The next card I got 4 of, and this is a surprisingly sort of expensive card for being a common, but it did come out in Planar Chaos, and that's Mana Tithe. For the Zoo deck, I won't be running any blue because it's Naya. It's just going to be red, green, and white. So I was thinking this might be a decent card to add, or maybe sideboard it. But Mana Tithe is pretty cool. It's 1 white instant, counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. So it's like a really light mana leak, but in white, this is basically white's only counterspell, and that could be good if they've tapped out and you can play that and they can't pay the 1. Well, there you go. The next card I got, and I was only able to find 1 of these because it's popular in Modern Green Stompy and in Frontier, and that's Avatar of the Resolute. It's a 2 forest for a 3/2 with reach and trample, but it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each other creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Frontier's using it right now in the Hardened Scales decks. Really good creature. Mono Green Stompy's always been a favorite of mine, so I definitely wanted to make sure I had one in the collection. Next card, I think you guys will definitely want it to make it into our Naya Zoo deck, and that's Rankor. It's a 1 green mana enchantment, enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+0 and has trample. Plus, when the enchanted creature dies, Rankor doesn't go to your graveyard, it goes back to your hand. So it's something you can play over and over unless, they have enchantment removal and kill the Rankor, and then it goes to your graveyard. But for 1 mana, giving a creature +2/+0 and giving it trample in like a zoo deck, especially if you've got a 3/3 wild Nacatl, well, now it's a 5/3 with trample, and your investment was 2 mana basically. So I've got 4 of those, and I think that's a really good card to keep in mind too. Next card we're going to go over is Bedlam Reveler. I've got 2 of these. This is a card that's used in the blue-red zoo deck. It's an 8-drop, 6 colorless, 2 red, but it costs 1 less to cast for each instant sorcery card in your graveyard. So obviously in the blue-red zoo deck, you're using a lot of instants and sorceries, and by turn 4 or 5, you should be able to drop this down to 2 to 3 mana, and it's a 3/4, but it's got prowess too. So whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it gets +1/+1, so it becomes a 4/5. And by the time it enters the battlefield, you really shouldn't have much of a hand, if any hand at all. So it draws you 3 cards too. So powerful creature, you can cast it for cheap, and it draws you cards. Another card we got a 4 of is Delver of Secrets. Of course, it's from original Innistrad, one of the greatest commons ever printed. 1 blue mana for a 1/1, but at the beginning of your upkeep, you look at the top card of your library. You may reveal that card. If an instant or sorcery card is revealed this way, transform Delver, and when you flip Delver over, it's a 3/2 with flying for 1 blue mana. So obviously a deck that runs this will be running a lot of instants and sorceries. There's many variations of Delver decks, but a card I wanted to have in the collection for deck building. Now, the next card is also a huge part of the blue-red zoo deck, and that is Thing in the Ice, and I do have 4 of these. It's a 2-drop for a 0/4 defender, enters with 4 ice counters on it. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, remove an ice counter from Thing in the Ice. Then if it has no ice counters on it, transform it, and it transforms into a 7/8, and it's got the ability that when it transforms, all non-horror permanents go back to their owner's hand. So this is pretty much sitting on the board as a 7/8, and you can attack with it. This is also a big mainstay in the blue-red zoo decks right now. And honestly, there's really some tricks. I mean, this could go into some other decks. It could even go into like a Grixis. If you're running black and Vampire Hexmage, throw this down on turn 2. Next turn, throw down Vampire Hexmage, take all the counters off this, and flip it over on turn 3. So that's not bad either. But a 7/8 returns pretty much everything else to their owner's hands, unless somebody's playing, some kind of horror deck or something, then it wouldn't. But most of the time, it'll return pretty much everything to their hands, and then you've got the only thing on the battlefield is 7/8, so definitely something good to have. And another card that I was able to pick up on, unfortunately, I was only able to find 1. There was a foil, but I'm not really big into foiling out my deck or anything, but I did get a Wilt Leaf Leash. It's a 4-drop, 1 colorless, and then 3 of either forest or plains. You can mix it around if you want to. It's a 4/4, but it does give anthem effects to other green and white creatures, gives them both +1/+1. And then if a spell or an ability an opponent controls causes you to discard Wilt Leaf Leash, put it onto the battlefield instead of putting it into your graveyard. So there's always a chance if they're trying to mill you, or they use Thoughtseize or something like that on you, want you to discard that, then instead of putting it into the graveyard, it goes onto the battlefield for free. I haven't seen this played in a whole lot of decks, but I liked the idea of it, the fact that it pumps both green and white creatures. So obviously that would be good for Naya Zoo. I'm just not sure because it is kind of expensive as far as mana goes, so we'll see, but I wanted to have one anyway. The next card I got, and I've got 3 of these, is Vexing Devil. Just 1 mountain for a 4/3 creature, and when it enters the battlefield, your opponent may have it deal 4 damage to them, so they'd have to take 4 damage, and if they do, you sacrifice Vexing Devil. So this is a pretty good 1-drop as far as creatures go, because if they take the damage, you paid 1 mana for them taking 4 damage, which is good. You know, it's more than a lightning bolt. If it stays on the battlefield, you paid 1 mana for a 4/3. Definitely something I think would work out well in Naya Zoo deck, and that will be one of the options we have in our creature pool. So, pretty good. Next card we have, I got 3 of these, and it's the Gore Clan Rampager. It's 2 in a mountain and a forest for a 4/4 with trample. Most people actually use it for the Blood Rush ability. You pay 1 mountain and 1 forest, discard the Rampager out of your hand, and target attacking creature gets +4/+4 and gains trample until end of turn. So most of the time this is used as a pump spell, and I have seen that run in Naya Zoo, so that's why I wanted to add it to the collection. Next card, and I do have 4 of these. I had 2 already, and I was able to trade for the last 2. Semyon Spirit Guide. It's a 3-drop, 2 colorless, and a red for a 2/2. The part that makes it really good, and the reason, you know, it's $5.57 for a common, is if you take it out of your hand from the game, basically you exile it out of your hand, you get to add a red mana to your mana pool. So if you've got 2 of these in your hand, you know, say opening turn, you put down a mountain, you get rid of both of these. Let's say if a lightning bolt, play a lightning bolt. Then if you've got a 2-drop or a Monastery Swift Spear and a Vexing Delver or whatever, you can put those down too. Really good early game plays can be done with Semyon Spirit Guide. I don't know if that's going to be part of the card pool for that or not, but I definitely wanted to have 4 of them in the collection. Next card, and I went ahead and got 2 of these as Become Immense. It's 6-drop, 5 colorless, and a forest. Target creature gets +6/+6 until end of turn. However, it does have Delve, so every card you exile from your graveyard while casting this pays for 1. And late game, really, that's all you're paying is 1. You just get rid of a bunch of cards or out of your graveyard and just pay the single forest, and then, you know, creature gets +6/+6. Heavily used in Infect, some Zoo decks, but mostly Infect. I really thought this card was going to get the ban hammer when the bans came down. I was surprised when it didn't. I figured Golgari Grave Troll would, so I actually got rid of mine a couple weeks ago. I didn't really think Gitaxian Probe would, and I was kind of disappointed about that, because that is a good card in the Blue-Red Zoo deck. And most Delver decks and really any deck could use that, because it's got the Phyrexian mana. You just pay 2 life and you get to look at their hand and draw a card, and it puts a card into your graveyard really quick. So unfortunately I do have a collection of those. Don't really know what I'm going to do with them because I don't play Vintage or Legacy. And now that they're out of Modern, they're kind of worthless to me. I really thought Become Immense was going to, though, but when it didn't, I did go ahead and pick up a couple. Those bannings were really surprising. And I knew Golgari Grave Troll would, because Dredge had just become too powerful of a deck. But I do feel sorry for the people that invested all the money in that deck when it started becoming good again, after they had unbanned Golgari Grave Troll last time, only for, you know, 2 of the cards out of the deck to get the ban hammer. That sucks, but I understand why they did it. So, next card is another card from Planar Chaos. Actually, a bunch of cards from Planar Chaos in this video. 2-drop, 1 colorless, and a forest for an enchantment, Seal of Primordium. Put it on the battlefield, sacrifice it, destroy target artifact or enchantment. So it's good artifact and enchantment destruction, and it puts an enchantment into the graveyard. So if you're playing a deck with Tarmogoyf that cares about the card types in the graveyard, you know, this is a very good card, because it's cheap artifact and enchantment destruction and puts an enchantment into the graveyard. So I wanted a couple of those just in case. Definitely something good. I don't have any Tarmogoyfs right now, but I'm definitely going to try to trade for some soon. I was kind of wanting to see what was coming out in Modern Masters 2017 to see if the price on them would drop, because they're still over $100 even after being printed 3 times. So the next card we've got is, I've got 4 copies of Temur Battle Rage. Came out in Fate Reforged. Recently I opened, 14 packs of Fate Reforged. Didn't get one of these. not one of these, and it's a common. And I've seen so many people on YouTube open packs of Reforged, and just, you know, pack after pack, they're getting one of these. So that was kind of disappointing. So I ended up having to trade for 4 of them. It's a 2-drop, 1 colorless, and a mountain for an instant. Target creature gains double strike until end of turn, and it does have ferocious. That creature also gains trample until end of turn if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, which is definitely not hard in Modern. And this card is being used heavily in Frontier right now too, in Tarka Red, and a lot of zoo decks are running it now too because it's cheap for double strike, and then most of the time you're going to have a creature with a power 4 or greater, and it gets trample. So definitely a very good pump spell, and that will go into our pool in the video we do for instant sorceries and enchantments. Next card I got a couple of is Goblin Bushwacker. Let's see, where are you? All the way down at the bottom. I did grab a couple of these. It's a 1-drop, 1/1. But it does have a kicker, so if you pay 2, when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn. So this one says creatures you control. It doesn't say other creatures you control. So if you go ahead and pay the 2 mana, Goblin Bushwacker gets the +1/+0 and gains haste as well. So it'd be a 2/1 with haste for 2. Not really bad. I mean, definitely not as good as Goblin Guide. Goblin Guide's always going to be one of the best red 1-drop creatures. But turn 2, really good play. Or hell, let's say you had Semyon Spirit Guide in your hand. You put down a mountain, exile Semyon Spirit Guide out of your hand. Turn 1, you've got a 2/1 with haste. So that's pretty good. But you know, even later in the game, turn 3 or 4, you put this down, go ahead and kick it. You know, your other creatures are getting the pump, and anything else you put down that turn also gains haste. So I did get a couple of those. Really good creature. And the last card I'm going to talk about tonight is also played in mono green Stompy, the Devotion decks, because it's 3 green, so you do have to run a lot of forest, but it's a 4/5, so you're paying 3 green for a 4/5. You know, you've got this down on turn 3. Turn 4, you play a Team or Battle Rage. Obviously this is going to be going for 8 because it's double strike, and then it gets the trample too. So definitely a good card to play. Something I wanted to add to the collection in case I wanted to go in the Devotion route one day. Probably not a card that I'm going to add to the card pool for the zoo deck, because it does cost 3 green, and there's definitely time. We want mountains and plains down as well, especially for something like Wild Nacatl, because I've got 4 Wild Nacatls, and that will be the first creature that I show in the card pool for our Naya Zoo deck. And it requires those lands to pump itself up from a 1-drop, so it becomes a 3/3. It costs a forest, so you know, you put the forest down, play the Nacatl, then you have a mountain and a plains down, it pumps it up 2/2, so it's a 3/3 for 1. I mean, this creature would be good because it's a 4/5 for 3, but it's 3 forests, so I don't know if the mana would really be able to support that very much. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video looking at what I've been able to add to our collection over the last week. And please tune in tomorrow night. I will have the first video up for our community-built modern Naya Zoo deck. And I want to hear your guys' thoughts on every card that I show and what you think should be in the deck, what shouldn't be in the deck. Just leave comments below after each video and let me know what you think. And I hope you guys have a good night, and I will see you tomorrow. Thank you.